I know you're
I'm on vacation mode.
He's on vacation mode. I gotta make sure this thing's recording.
We also came in on a day we weren't supposed to, so I don't feel bad.
For me?
Me and you. Very first
Yeah.
day.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, we were both here.
Yeah, they showed up on the first day
Y'all weren't
of the
here.
initial schedule. They showed up.
I hope we're here till 1.
I was here.
I think y'all were actually on duty.
Yeah, they were on duty.
But yeah, the first day from the initial schedule, because the secondary schedule never got sent out. So, all right, Chapter 6, Emergency Management. Kind of a good time to talk about this.
Is Davis and Paul aren't here?
No, because there's
We've been looking for the hurricane.
Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah.
Oh, flooding, yeah.
All right, here we go. I think we're on board now. All right, so we're going to identify the principles of emergency management. When it comes to emergency management, we've got to talk about the vulnerabilities. You know, obviously the vulnerabilities of our district, of our community, should be identified before the disaster strikes. You know, the interesting thing is, I think Louisiana's having an opportunity, as bad as, you know, as it may sound, but to see how their disaster preparedness has really been for them this year. Because in about 12 hours, they're going to have the 5th hurricane hit Louisiana this year alone. Be the 11th named storm strike the United States, which is another record, but the 5th one for Louisiana alone. And it's, other than, was it Laura and Delta, have pretty much been all over the coast of Louisiana, because those two pretty much hit the same spot just about twice. But they should be identified before disaster hits, not just with tropical systems, but, you know, the pandemic, with any type of natural disaster. We should be out when we're out pre-planning, when we're out driving the community. We should be looking at what areas are what we consider vulnerable. Emergency managers identify the vulnerabilities and understand their potential consequences to prepare for disasters. Preparation should be done in conjunction with risk assessments and pre-plans. So here's some examples of some vulnerabilities that you can encounter. Flooding. I think after Hurricane Harvey, flooding has definitely been and is still maintaining as a priority topic for this jurisdiction. And not just here, but other areas as well. We know what it looks like when we get 2 to 3 inches of rain in an hour. Then obviously we know what it looks like when we get 30 plus inches of rain in 24 hours. It gets crazy. David and Ed get to go drive around a high water vehicle and are amazed.
Get rescued in a boat.
Get rescued in a boat. But the city's done a good job as far as working on a mitigation plan when it comes to flooding. Harris County's done a great job with the Braze Bio project, because since Braze Bio project has been complete, or at least where it's at now, it has really helped the flooding issue in our city. The city, since Harvey, they've actually joined up with, partnered with TxDOT on to redo the drainage underneath the city, because a lot of it does run along 610, and technically it's partly TxDOT's issue, but at the same time we're going to kick in funds and all that to help make that.
But they also got over like $2 billion of FEMA money at post Harvey.
Yeah, there's a lot of funding available to make that project happen. That is one thing that the city's definitely been looking at to help reduce flooding in our city. Elderly, I mean, that's what, 50% of our community, give or take.
What did we learn, and this is a great time to extend this topic, but what did we learn from the previous evac that you guys said was a horrible decision to how we dealt with it with Harvey? Y'all sent some people on buses halfway through, I don't know where.
That was before Deacons.
Yeah, that was before.
No, I know, but what did we learn from that?
What we learned from that was,
we're not going to do that again.
Well, and the decision was, we supported Gardens of Bel Air's decision. It was Gardens of Bel Air's decision to transport those individuals on a bus and evacuate them because of the impacts from the storm.
Right.
I don't think and they might have taken it based upon the decisions that were made here or what we were seeing and forecasted. I don't know what all went into those details to help make that decision, but I don't think it was a mandatory evacuation that was issued, because Harris County's not going to issue mandatory evacuation for us, and our city's not either. But to me, what we learned is, I mean, if businesses and all that are going to do something like that, I don't see an issue with some help supporting that as far as, you know, there's a lot of people that are trying to evacuate in a relatively short period of time. It just looked bad overall because they were from the city of Bel Air. So the whole entire city took kind of a brunt on it. And I know there was personal impacts from those that were involved. But I think from a city standpoint, I think our role was just to help get them loaded on buses and help them.
Yeah, they called Daryl and asked, what should they do? Should they evacuate or should they not? And Daryl, good thing for Daryl, he told them, you need to follow your emergency plan and go with that. You know, if you think you need to, you need to. If you don't, you don't, but you need to follow your plan. Well, they went with the plan and they called us, say, hey, we've got all these people we need to move. We don't have enough people to help. Can you guys come and help us to load these people in the bus? And so we did. What we did is we loaded all those that were wheelchair bound in the back, and everybody that was ambulatory in the front. And so consequently, when the bus ignited, guess who was killed? Everybody in the back, because they couldn't get out. Now, would it have changed if we put them up front and put those that were ambulatory in the back?
Could have been worse.
You know,
Could have been worse.
it could have been worse.
So the ones in the wheelchair trying to get out, the people, the other ones are trying to,
Yeah. So yeah, and the thing that saved the city and saved Daryl was that Daryl told them, follow your plan.
And that's very similar to like the whole entire pandemic. Episcopal High School's reached out to us several times because they want to have events and they want input from the city. So we look over their plan, we've provided them input, but we only provide guidance. We're not making the actual decision for them. We put it back on them, so it takes the liability off of the city. Now granted, yeah, take that instance, had Daryl said, yes, y'all need to evacuate because this is what we're seeing, then the city's taking the liability because they are telling them that they need to evacuate. So yeah, looking at that, following their emergency plan, that's definitely a good example for that on the elderly part. I mean, me, if they called again today and said, hey, we need help loading all these people, I wouldn't have a problem sending the crews over there to support them. I mean, I think that's what we do. I mean, you know, we support one another, we help the different agencies. But again, it's the decisions can be based upon their decision and their plan, not because of what we're telling them, things like that. But we do got to think about the elderly. We got to think about, like I said, the Gardens of Bel Air. They've done a great job with the pandemic as far as notifying. I think right now they only have one active case. For a nursing home, assisted living, they have had very little active cases in the city. Very little. I think at one time they had 3, I think was the most they had at one time. But at no time have they had more than 2 residents that have tested positive. And it's like the lockdown over there. I talked to Nick the other day and he's ready to break out and break free.
Who'd you talk to?
Do what?
How'd you talk to?
Cell phone.
Oh, not by
Who's
It's not
that?
my business. Nick Aaron.
Oh,
Yeah, he's ready to break free and break out of that place. Because he can't really do anything, and nobody can, but I mean, they're trying to protect the residents and everybody else. So. But yeah, we've got to look at the elderly population. We've got they do Gardens of Bel Air, just so you know, does an update every year on the emergency plan. So they always send it to us to look over, review, and then without the pandemic, we can go sit down and discuss it with them and provide our guidance and our feedback to them.
Do we approve their plan?
We give them recommendations and say yes. I mean, we do ultimately, if it fits within everything else, because they'll ask, do they have our blessing on it? And we do.
Okay, because I was gonna say that's what we had to do out there as well, is there's something in the state thing that we actually had to sign.
Because they have to get our signature on it.
Okay,
So,
I didn't know if it was the same type of facility or not.
and I'll just say that these bottom 2, thank God, we don't even have them in our city. I don't want anything to do with industrial.
I think we should have one.
No.
Chevron's
Nashville
closed.
Bakery kept-
Chevron's close, but when it comes to the all-hazard approach, coordinated approach to a wide variety of incidents. Obviously, weather is our biggest thing that we prepare for, we plan for, we encounter quite a bit. Earthquakes, not saying it couldn't happen here. I mean, we've had earthquakes hours away from the city of Houston, some minor ones, nothing major, but I couldn't imagine being like California, you know, and going through earthquakes all the time. Wildfires,
And wildfires.
yeah,
Big
I
one.
mean,
They got
those
two
two
big
kind of
ones
go
going
hand
on.
in hand right now, without a doubt. This year's been the busiest wildfire season that they've ever typically had, because the season's typically over with by October, and now we're going into November, and there's still so many fires that are out there. The snow that's come in with this last system has definitely helped the central plains area, as far as slowing that down, but yeah, it's been pretty crazy on the wildfires. Chemical releases, because we don't have industry, that's not a very common thing, but it doesn't mean we cannot be affected by it. ITC, when it caught fire, especially in the early days, we were getting readings all the way in Bel Air from the air quality readings from ITC. So it's something we could encounter based upon the wind speed. Natural gas releases, there's a natural gas plant, I think at 288, and I can't. So south of NRG off of 288, I can't think of what that one road is, but there's a natural gas plant over there that they've had a release before that we've gotten wind of. And then obviously acts of terror. Thank goodness we haven't had any of those, but we have had sites, and we do have sites in our city that could be a prime target. Planning using this approach ensures capability to handle any emergencies. So the downside is a lot of times when we do train, when we do talk, we do prepare, a lot of our focus is on weather because that's what we encounter the most. But there's nothing wrong with making sure we broaden our scope, and we are planning and preparing for all these. So emergency management concept, emergency management must prepare for all situations. Studying previous disasters definitely help. All-inclusive list of disasters can never be compiled. There may be unknowns or unimagined disasters, and all-hazard approach is definitely important because when we do the what if, when we brainstorm, we think about different things, the list can go on. There's so much that is out there. I mean, like I said, when we do our exercises, everything seems to be hurricane, hurricane, hurricane. But now I think we're going to start seeing more like, okay, we'll do hurricane one time, and then we'll start doing another pandemic, you know, or different things like that. This pandemic we're learning every day on the pandemic. When things seem like they're getting better, there's always areas where it's not. Like the second wave, I believe is there. It's just hadn't made it to Texas yet, and it's on its way. So we could be dealing with COVID-19 into 2021 and wearing masks for quite some time. So,
Plus you also have the flu coming on.
luckily the numbers have not been as early anticipated, but it's still early. Incident categories, obviously you gotta look at emergency incidents, which we talked about in planned events last week when we met, you know, or incidents we can't cancel, but events you can. Alright, so the emergency incident, we're talking about natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and obviously many others. But on planned events, you know, major sporting events, large-scale demonstrations, political events, concerts. What is one event coming up that obviously can be canceled, but would cause a lot of ripple effect, but something we need to be concerned about
Talking about Christmas coming?
before Christmas,
Candy.
next week, nationwide.
Halloween.
Are you talking about the
National Night
election?
Out.
election.
Is the election?
The election.
Oh yeah, they're bringing in National Guard.
Yeah, National Guard. Texas has already got National Guard ready to go, ready to be deployed to a lot of major cities for support. Yeah. I don't know if our PD's doing anything. I've caught wind that they're bringing in extra staff that night because Nate and I already had a discussion about deploying an SOT team if need be. So if you're back from Jamaica, no, all right, so you're out. You don't get to go play. So David might get to go play.
We're on duty.
Okay, you don't get to go play.
Bring John there. He can fill my spot.
But that is another one. Again, that's a planned event that is already being talked about, already being discussed, and already having resources ready to be deployed. But then you look at the other things, you know, as far as incident categories, which would be more of emergency, you know, all the police shootings that are taking place. As soon as it happens, I mean, riots or demonstrations or things like that are, you know, so we've got to have a plan in place ready to go because if it occurs for whatever reasons, you've got to be ready to deploy your resources to support and protect your community. So, emergency management services involvement, it's all agencies. It's not just fire, it's not just police, but it's all agencies involved. All agencies in the city, all agencies outside the city, all levels of government, corporation, military, community, many professions, and academic communities. Everybody plays a role in emergency management. We have continuous, I can say that our city is very fortunate to have public works, law enforcement, finance, HR, all the different departments playing a role in emergency management because you go across the tracks, and I can tell you, you look at my job as an emergency manager, and you go look at Chief Taylor's job as emergency manager, I don't want that one. He does it all. He does all the grants, he does all the finance, and he does all the stuff for emergency managers. There's a lot of them that do that. Their emergency management does everything for it. We're here, we're very fortunate because the way it's been set up is finance is involved in all the finance, and public works is involved in their stuff, and police is involved, everybody's involved, and everybody has a role and responsibility. So the emergency manager's role is more for guidance, direction, overseeing and facilitating, not facilitating doing all that, plus all the back end paperwork as well. So, but there's a lot of cities that are.
Is there strategy behind that, or is it just because?
I don't know. I think it's because that's the way it's always been, and nobody's really ever explored it or really tried to branch it out. I think Taylor's trying to branch it out some to take a little, because in reality, like right now, right now it's not so bad, but early on in the pandemic, he's probably 90% emergency management and 10% fire chief.
Well, it just doesn't make sense if you have specialty managers for that, or if you want to call them branch managers,
Right.
or use them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, next year, June, July, maybe August, you schedule training for the IAP, the app. And cause Davis and I were talking about that.
Yeah.
That would take a lot of work.
I'm gonna get with Pop and try to get that scheduled early part of 2021, before hurricane season comes. David Popoff.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, David Popoff's great.
I haven't seen him in years.
I hadn't either. I talked to him.
Let me pat myself and tell you how good I am.
Oh yeah. Give a little.
He's good. I do. I like him.
But
he's good.
it's many different professions. Suck up. Yeah, only one ball. Only one ball. Man,
The messenger.
You ever seen that?
don't even take care of the
video puppy
FTL or
getting
your
sued?
lieutenant because he's not on vacation yet. I'm trying.
Lieutenant already ate.
You didn't know that?
The chief.
What'd you say, Phil?
You ever seen the video of them taking the bowl of food to the puppy in the cage?
What do you cook? Cinnamon roll and
Eggs
eggs
and
and.
turkey and
That's funny.
potatoes.
But it's an all-encompassing deal. We've got our logistics section. Ryan and Buster have done a phenomenal job building relationships with Randall's and HEB and the fuel and just building all these networks because when we need stuff, they're ready to go. To the point to where I think HEB said, here's the key to our place. Take what you need, document it. We'll worry about the details later on. I think Randall's is pretty much the same way. So that's definitely a plus because, hey, we're here for an extended period of time, especially when power's not restored, things like that. We have the potential resources.
So in the
Walmart
midst-
was the same way.
In the midst of this going on, and we're building this cache of reimbursements, is there a time that they say, hey, send us what you have and we'll reimburse what you've already spent? Or do they wait till the entire?
No, we've actually already, like with the pandemic, Harris County, the funding that the state got, Harris County got a large lump sum. And what Harris County did is now they are breaking that lump sum down for the municipalities within the jurisdiction.
So we're getting.
The city of Bel Air, I think it's 1.2 or $1.4 million is what we're entitled for reimbursement to cover our costs for COVID-19 so
Nice.
far. We've submitted $850,000 so far for reimbursement in the first round of the CARES Act as well.
Okay.
Anybody you can think of that can help you out when it comes to resources for emergency management, get them on board. Because like I said, when it comes to that, you've got your interagency, your intergovernmental, your interoperability, and your interdisciplinary. But all of that doesn't function if you don't communicate, you don't practice, you don't train, you don't work. You don't understand what everybody's doing. You've got to get out there. We've got to bring all the departments together. We've got to have tabletops. We've got to have exercises. We've got to, we can't just, like, we've incorporated the response IEP software, where now we're not doing anything on paper anymore, everything's done electronically. Well, that's all well and good, but right now you really have 2.5 people that know how to operate it. Davis, Big, and then half myself, because I know how to log in. You're a step ahead of me, okay?
I'm gonna tell you, it's a great piece of software.
But if we don't share that knowledge and we don't share that with everybody else, so what we're having to do is we're having to do stuff electronically, but yet the other departments are having to do stuff on paper. So they're having to send the information to Davis and Albert, and Davis and Albert having to duplicate the work. To where if we send it to them electronically, they can do everything. But you've got to be able to work together. The interoperability, like being able to communicate what radio frequencies, how you're going to get a hold of one another. Response IEP, prime example, why we took everybody's picture after, was it Laura, before everybody left, is because now we've got your picture on the response IEP. So now if you go anywhere in Harris County and they use the response IEP, your badge that we will create soon will have a barcode or a QR code. You walk up, hand on that, they can scan it, and now you're in their system already because you're already in the response IEP.
Are we working on that being available for all response personnel here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because I think now you can download it now.
I have
Because you can get the IEPs when they're sent out. You can have access to that.
Because that's how. Talk about it.
Yeah.
They give you the client code. You log in. You can see what they've put together. And
yes, we're working on all of that.
Yeah.
So why is it important to use an all-hazard approach to emergency management?
Okay, actually,
Because you can.
Anything can happen, and it usually does, so to speak. It's
Better prepared than not.
Yeah, you can't just, even if it's something outside of what you've attempted to plan for, if you're a one-trick pony versus someone who already has kind of an all-hazards view, you're more adaptable for when a 727 lawn darts in the middle of Bel Air, or whatever the case
I'll
may
use
be.
the two hurricanes.
Just like, I'm
Two hurricanes were-
hurry up.
The two hurricanes were an all hazard, and it was based on trajectories of the travel of the hurricanes, which in the end missed us completely. But are we better safe than sorry?
There's one word, 2020.
Yeah.
That's why I use an all-hazard approach. I mean, we're dealing with so much. We're dealing with a pandemic. We've been dealing with tropical storms. We've been, active shooters. There's so much that can be going on at any one time. So provide an example from your jurisdiction on how emergency management utilizes interagency or intergovernmental cooperation from y'all's experience. Yeah.
Even just us working with Public Works cutting trees is technically, interagency.
Oh man,
That's
that makes it hard.
yeah, it is. Oh. What'd you say, Phil? I'm sorry, I was a little distracted here.
Even as simple as working with Public Works cutting trees to clear roadways, that type of thing, that's technically interagency. It can get more complex than that. It can be us going with PD on responses, whether it be for a terrorism response or whether it just be us jumping in their flood truck and splitting crews that way.
Yep.
Are we using the WebEx or what the Harris County uses?
WebEOC?
WebEOC.
Yes, we use that.
Because that's how you go through to ask for your
Resources.
assets and
Yeah.
resources.
Yeah, we're using that today. County's trying to get away from it and get rid of it because it sucks.
It does.
The only time I've experienced intergovernmental was our tanker rollover, because you had a lot of people here that day.
Yeah, tanker rollover was definitely a good example here in Bel Air. 610, because we were dealing with not just
Which
TEC,
tank roll over?
the one at Bel Air 610, not the one that burned.
The one at
The
59,
one that
I mean,
spilled-
16 in Bel Air.
We thought potentially spilled 800 gallons, and only spilled a couple hundred gallons.
Yeah,
Yeah, because we dealt with TxDOT, TCEQ,
yep.
different environmental companies. We dealt with the Coast Guard, which, surprisingly, I think Coast Guard, but because of the waterway breeze.
Well, and I didn't know, I've been on all of them. I didn't know if you went, we were talking about the tar one up there that spilled
Oh,
the
no.
gasoline here, or the one that burn, you know?
So, all right. So 4 phases of emergency management: mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. And a lot of times you'll see that these phases do often overlap. Mitigation is in the aspect, and we'll talk about these more in detail, but where you're identifying and you're working on trying to eliminate that as being a potential hazard. And through preparedness, through your training, through responses when we activate, and recovery is when we're doing the cleanup and learning about what we did right, what we did wrong, and how we can improve. So mitigation, these are efforts or activities that lessen effects or consequences of potential emergencies. You know, through your building and fire codes, you know, we can look at our building codes, we can look at our fire codes to see, you know, not only is it what's best for the city as far as aesthetics, as far as fire prevention, things like that, but in a natural disaster realm, what are things that we can add to the code that are all automatically forces new facilities to implement and build so that it's already there if and when. It's just like schools. You know, we can go into our building codes and have them implement a new code to where it requires them to install those special locks for active shooter situations. So if we ever get a new school built, that's an automatic, and they incorporate it in their plans. Zoning ordinances, the city's broken down into many different zones and zone different things, specific like residential, commercial. I don't know, there's so many that are out there, and don't get me lying to you as far as trying to explain them, but our city has so many different ones as far as zoning, and we wanted to look at more of the commercial district. You want to implement something just in that zoning district, we can do that. Floodplain management, the city's working on that, especially after Hurricane Harvey, because we learned so much. You know, they've implemented a floodplain or a flood mitigation task force. They're looking at grants, they're looking at different projects. You know, one of them that's still out there that I don't know if it's just died off is putting flap gates on some of our drainage. So more or less allows the water to go out, but doesn't allow anything to back up in return. Again, I don't know if that's something that they're still pursuing or not. Again, building performance standards, architectural structural design, sustainability and livability programs, climate monitoring, risk management, and educational initiatives. But these are all things that should be looked at, and we can definitely look at when it comes to mitigating for emergency management. Collaborative efforts to craft strategic resolutions to an emergency. Remember, as mitigation, it's a scalable process that addresses simple to the complex outcome for an incident. If we implement new building codes, it's based off of, could be based off of past experiences, history, or it could be something we see that could be a need for the future. Involves pre-planning and operational action planning, and local programs are based on risk assessments. You know, getting out there, doing risk assessments, looking at these facilities, really looking at them in detail, and then looking at what other jurisdictions are doing, or if we're going to be, like I say, leading edge and being one of the first ones to implement something of that nature. Prevention, this is a major aspect of mitigation. It emphasizes the training, personnel understanding, and readiness to prevent an incident. I think one of the best things that the Dallas-Fort Worth area did was, I don't know if they did it through their codes or how they did it, but they installed cameras in all their schools, but the cameras tie back to the law enforcement dispatch consoles. So if there's an active shooter situation, PD's getting dispatched, but somebody's got access to the school cameras outside the school and can pick up where the shooter is and really help identify it. And they've had that for at least 4 or 5 years. I think they had that before Santa Fe, or maybe right after Santa Fe. What's that rich city up in Dallas area? I know it narrows that down, but the one that...
Plano, Flower Mound, any of those?
Mesquite,
not Plano.
Highland Park,
They got their own little city, built their own little... I can't think of it.
McKinney, Alvin.
I think it's on the north side.
That's your
All
park.
cities on the
Yeah, I'll think of it.
Frisco.
Frisco, yeah, they are the ones that have access to cameras on the inside of all their schools and can control and things of that nature. So that's part of that mitigation.
If you ever go to a conference and they're there, have them pull up their command vehicle and pull up their, I don't know if it's Responder 360 or what, but they are able to control their traffic lights off their computer. I mean, they've got everything on this software.
Is that Frisco? Yeah, their city has got a heck of a network, and the things that they do, they're pretty leading edge in a lot of areas. And then educational prevention, enhancing risk reduction. You know, implementing this stuff is great, but if you don't educate the purposes behind it, educate the operations behind it, or how we train and things like that, it doesn't do you any good. Prevention strategies, some tangible elements, obviously, is education, engineering, and enforcement. Intangible elements are encouragement, economics, and evaluation. These are things that, tangible things that, you can control. You can force people to educate. You can force them to go to classes, train on it. Engineering, specifically designed for that facility, and make sure there's, enforcement behind it, not just saying, hey, you need to do it, hope you do it, never go back. You can enforce it to make sure it's being tested, kind of like we do with the sprinkler systems in the city. They install them, they make sure that they know how to utilize them. It's engineered specifically for that facility, but the enforcement behind it is making sure that they're getting tested. They're being checked on a monthly basis, but then tested on an annual basis. Intangible side of things, again, we can encourage a lot of it. We can make recommendations, we can throw things out there and really emphasize. Obviously, economics is going to have a lot to do with it, because some of it could be very cheap to implement, some of it could be very expensive to implement. Unless we're offering type of grant programs or funding, it may be difficult. And then being able to go back and evaluate it on a consistent basis as well. Preparedness, continuous process that is fundamental to emergency management. You're going to identify the threats and the consequences, determine your vulnerabilities, and identify required resources before an emergency. So that's where your tabletops come in. That's where you sit down and you throw a topic out there and you say, okay, if we had this, what would we do here? If we had that, what would we do? We picked two homes in Bel Air. If we had a single-story structure compared to a two-story structure, your approach is going to be different. But a single-story structure, TJ's approach is going to be one way, and Carl's approach could be something totally different. Could be a lot of similarities, but then again, it could be, because not every fire burns the same. And again, your approach, your ideas and tactics could be a little different as well. But doesn't make them wrong. But you're identifying the threats, you're identifying the consequences. You're looking at these structures as they're being built. You're looking at how they're, the wood frame construction. You're looking at the layout on the fire site. You're saying, okay, these are all prefab roofs. They got gusset plates, so you see the threat with the gusset plate. A little bit of exposure, they pop off. You got structural collapse, truss construction. So that's going to be your threat, and then you see your consequences. The vulnerability is how quickly do they burn? What's going to be like if you had to rescue somebody in the far back of the house? Is it like a big maze? Again, you don't know a lot of this because unless you go inside these homes on a regular basis, you don't know their true layout or how much furniture they have. And then how many resources do you need? And again, I use structure fires just because it's something that's very close to us, even though it's so far away at times. But a lot of times we can handle a lot of our fires with just Bel Air, Westview, and Southside. But there are times we have to extend that and call for additional trucks, call for additional resources to come help us out. But we think about that a lot ahead of time when we play that with FK. So our focus, the security spectrum, lifecycle domains, we need to make sure we're aware. We understand what our focus is and what the hazards that we're looking at. What prevention activities are we doing? What prevention activities are we asking the public to do? What response preparedness are we taking? Mitigation and restoration, and then recovery activities. Hurricane Harvey taught us a lot. It taught us, we thought we were prepared. Granted, anytime you get 30 plus inches of rain, no matter how prepared you are, that's just the unexpected. It's hard to really do, but we learned a lot even in the recovery phase. How to put up a recovery center where people can come gather information, all that stuff. But everybody had to put their stuff outside the road, and our recovery companies and contracts, were they good? There was I think some flaws in and that with outside vendors and outside contractors that we've tightened up since then. So, you know, you take every emergency, every incident that happens, and you build off of it, and you learn from it, and you get yourself better prepared for the next one. So through preparedness, you're going to conduct research. You know, you're going to look at what happens here, how it can be beneficial. You're going to look outside our jurisdiction. We're going to do planning. We're going to gather intelligence. We're going to coordinate information and activities. We're going to exercise our plans, evaluating the criteria, training and educating, partnering with those in the community surrounding areas and around the globe, and meeting standards of excellence and best practices. You know, it sounds like a lot, but in reality, that's what we do on a daily basis in the fire service. You know, we have things, we have new equipment, we have new protocols, we have new trucks. We put them in service, we're testing them, we're researching them before we even build them. We're planning it, but we're seeing what works and what doesn't work. You know, things don't work, okay, why didn't it work? Change our approach. This FTO program is a prime example. Looks good on paper, sounds good overall, but I'm sure we've found flaws throughout. Maybe you haven't, I don't know. You know, but there's always going to be ways to make it better. When this whole FTO process is done with Brandon and all that, we should get some good feedback from David and TJ and everybody to see what we can improve on, tweak, what we need to potentially change and modify and get ready for the next one whenever that happens. You know, we have standards with the FTO program because it's mirrored after shirts where, you know, who taught the class to us. We make it our own. You know, and it could be something that we get evaluated on to see how well it is and do best practices on. But it's a continuous process. It's not something we do today, put it on the shelf, and we don't reach for that book until 6 months later when we actually need it. We've got to stay on top of it. You know, your response, that's what fire and smoke looks like, just in case you didn't know. But our resources, you know, the activation of it, is it just your active response? You know, how do we activate our mutual aid responses? How do we activate our automatic aid responses? If we need resources outside of Bel Air, what's the process? Can we call dispatch and tell dispatch we need it? But depending upon the resource, do they have access to it? Do they know the numbers, how to request them? When it comes to emergency management, for us to request resources outside of our own, we have to go through Web EOC and fill out a 214 RR form, which gets sent to the county. If the county can fill it, they'll send it. If the county can't fill it, then they send it to the state, and then they fill it. You know, when you do activate these resources, where are you going to mobilize them at? Where are you going to stage them at? You bring extra staff, extra personnel in to help you out. Where are they going to sleep at? You got to be ready to feed them. You got to be ready to make sure you take care of housing and all that. Who's coordinating all that? You know, who's putting all that together? It's part of that IEP. It's part of your playbook. You know, when they come in, okay, we're staging everybody at Condon. Everybody's going to Condon. They're checking in, and they'll stay there until they're ready to be utilized. Once they're utilized and they need to come in and realize that they need them, they're going to call staging and get them deployed. And then they're going to give them their instructions as to what they need to do. You know, we do a lot of this on the fire side, because when we make structure fires, we have box alarm assignments that we level one stage, and we'll stage everybody a block away. So that way it gives us time as incident commanders to really evaluate what we need and really control the flow of units coming in and how they come in. Because you know, all these structure fires, if we need a ladder truck, we've got to make sure we control the flow early and leave space for a ladder truck and some additional resources. Because if we don't level one stage anybody, and everybody just comes on in, you throw your ladder truck option out the window. So it's very important to be thinking about that, your resources. And sometimes it's just getting creative. You know, it could be a lack of not knowing what resources you have available. You know, the drone, hey, that's a great resource. That gives us a different view of the incident as a whole. Can provide some definite, some vital information. So when it comes to response, think about LIPS. Okay, that's the acronym here. There's no S on this one, but I'll give you a bonus with that one. But we're going to think about LIPS. So you got life safety. You got incident stabilization and property conservation, and then the S is society restoration.
That's in the recovery section.
Do what?
That would be in the
recovery. But that's your order. Everything we do is obviously life safety. Your safety is number one. the citizens is number 2. You're gonna take care of your own, because if you can't protect yourself, you're not gonna be any beneficial to them. You know, do everything you can to stabilize it. You are the eyes and ears out in the field, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a flood, whether it's a structure fire, whatever you're doing. When you're the boots on the ground, you are the eyes and ears for the ops section chief. You are the eyes and ears for the incident commander. We could implement a policy today that says for every box alarm assignment, the shift commander does not leave this house. The shift commander comes in this room and they command everything from right here. Because if you as a staff are trained and really understand your job, you can respond, the 3 of you on engine 33, you can give your size up when you get there, and y'all are the eyes and ears, you can tell command everything you need, and they never have to actually make location. In reality, command can run it from here, wherever, as long as the personnel on the ground are providing the information that is needed. We're not doing it. No, don't.
Why not?
It's like, I'm going on vacation. Hurry up. No, we're not doing that. I'm just saying it can be done that way. But remember, when it comes to emergency management, as an EOC, it's not our job to manage what y'all have going on out in the field. It's our job to manage the overall operations of the city and supply y'all the resources that y'all need to get it done. You know, the true incident commander, if you have one big incident, your operations section chief is the one that's really calling a lot of the shots out there. You supply them that information, they're giving the feedback, telling you what you need, and telling the EOC what they need. If we got multiple scenes, then you're going to have multiple incident commanders working with the operations section chief overall.
I was gonna say, is that because they're gonna deploy the drone and just be able to watch overhead?
They could, but at the same time, again, you're the boots on the ground, you're the eyes and ears. So if you're providing the feedback, they should be able to know. Because if you say, hey, we're 6 inches in water, everything's good, we don't need any boats over here, then they know, okay, we don't need to deploy boats to the south Del area, we can, hold them off for another area. Or if you say, hey, we need another high water vehicle because we're encountering a lot of high water, then they know they can help, based upon what you request. Doing everything we can to stabilize the incident, and obviously we're going to do what we can to protect property to the best of our ability. Implementation of local, state, regional, and national response plan. We have a plan within our city. We're tied into Harris County's all hazard plan, and then our plan, not only tied with the counties, is also tied regional based as well. So we have it kind of like NIMS. How we operate is very similar to the county and very similar to the state as we move forward. Again, shortest and most intense phase is your initial response. Is your response out in the field, because until you really get out there, you see what's going on, you have a good understanding. You're drawing that picture. You're trying to help us understand. After a period of time when we're no longer responding, as far as we're not saving lives, we're not stopping the actual incident, we will transition over to the recovery phase. There was a point the water went down. No more individuals need to be rescued. All the incidences, all the emergencies were truly isolated and taken care of where it was safe for the public. We transitioned over to a recovery phase, and we started supporting the residents. We started providing information. And then some states have ESF in addition to the NSF. And these are just annexes to the emergency response guide that are specific to law enforcement, specific to fire and EMS, specific to public works, and different agencies throughout. So that way okay, this is our overall guide, but what's specific to me. So you can kind of read what you need to be following and what you need to be doing overall.
What are ESF and NSF?
What's the
Emergency support functions and nationals.
Okay, emergency support functions and national support functions. We use the term annexes around here. That's what we're familiar with. So here's an example of some emergency support functions. Like I said, number 1 is transportation. The primary agency over that's going to be the United States Department of Transportation. And it just lists them out. I know, like when the state of Texas has a statewide conference call because of like they've been having them here lately for the winter weather up north, or when we have tropical weather, right before landfall, they'll kind of get to a point to where they'll start running down the ESFs and getting reports from different agencies, following that to kind of see where everybody's at in the plan. Again, under response elements, NIMS, which we're all very fluent with, and we're trained on. EOCs, I think we all have a good understanding of what the EOC is and what it does and how it plays a role. I think an added bonus, to a degree, is because of y'all's involvement from time to time with the EOC, you kind of get to learn some new roles and responsibilities. Even though sometimes I know we may not like it, we may not like to be off the street, and I'm not just saying it because I jack the fig a lot too. But it definitely broadens our knowledge and our experience. I mean, we support, from a department standpoint, with 23 individuals, we probably put more support in the EOC than what other departments do, and we still are able to do the job that we are able to provide from a fire and EMS standpoint. Logistics, again, they do a great job supplying your food, your sleeping arrangements, any of those types of resources that might be needed. Finance is great, making sure we're doing all of our paperwork correctly so we get reimbursed and make sure you get paid. Planning is, the way I look at planning to me is like the mother of the EOC. Because they're over the IEP, they're over the forms, they're over everything, and it's their job to be the bad person. To keep us all in line, keep us in check. If you need a form by 2 o'clock, my God, planning's gonna be there at 1:45, say, hey, I need that form done in 15 minutes. They're gonna be the naggers. Okay, they're gonna make sure we are on task with what we need to be. They're not just doing the IEPs, but they're trying to look out, 24 hours down the road, 36 hours down the road. Hey, we're gonna be here doing this. We got all these resources come in. What are we looking at food-wise? What are we looking at for, additional resources? What are we looking at for downtime for these individuals? Kind of future foreseeing part of it. Operations, again, they're overseeing the boots on the ground. SIT reports, situation reports, those are just, you get them daily for the pandemic as far as what's going on, what agencies are doing what, and the current status of the disaster. Kind of like the little weekly EOC briefing I send out, city staffs that I send out once a week. That's just one variation to what others put out. Public and media updates, you definitely got to make sure you communicate with the public. This year has been very unique. We've been trying to make sure we stay creative and don't send out too much because we've had a lot of potential activations. We've got a lot going on. And what we don't want to be looked upon is the city that cries wolf. We're always putting stuff out, prepare, and then nothing happens. Because wasn't Laura, we activated for her and didn't even get a trace of rain or, barely any wind. But then we didn't really activate for Beta, and we got more off Beta than we did Laura. So, we've got to make sure, like with the pandemic, we're still putting stuff out there, but we're trying to be creative with it. So that way people don't just blow us off and ignore it. Search and rescue, we all understand that. Medical needs. Crisis counseling is probably something we may not do enough of. After the incident, after the situations that happen, we may not offer enough counseling and support for each of y'all. I don't know if anything got done after Harvey as far as support, anything else like that. But there might not have been anybody really affected by Harvey. Harvey, the water came up, the water went down. We had to play a little bit. We had to rescue individuals, and there might not have been much tragic from a personal level in the city.
Lack of my sleep.
That's all the time. Body identification, I think we're okay there. That's more of a PD area. We have some identification aspects on that, but that's really not in our realm that we have to worry about. Resource management, just managing our resources for our response at the beginning of the incident. When you roll out of the station, you should start to manage those resources right then and there. We don't have GPS on their trucks. One feature that I know some agencies have, they have GPS on the trucks because when they pull up like Responder 360, you can see where the trucks are coming from, so it allows you to kind of think ahead a little bit. We don't, like I said, we don't have GPS, but with the Sierra wireless, we can turn a function on to give us that capability if we ever get to the point with Responder 360. So that would help the incident commanders see the resources as they're coming in. And then your mutual aid agreement and management, making sure you're going through the agreements, making sure you're up to date and they're renewed as often as they need to be. But making sure you're reading them as well to make sure it's not something you're committing yourself to or not committing yourself to. Like all these deployments, like I said, I'm ready to pull the trigger, ready to let y'all go. Yeah. If the mayor of New Orleans called and said, hey, we need y'all's boat, we're going, guys. We don't have an agreement. We may not get reimbursed, but we'll cross that bridge later. We're going to go. All right, TJ's going to be in Jamaica, so I know he's out. We're gonna
I think I already am.
Why, TJ? Be positive. All right, let's talk about a few more, and then like I said, we'll break. Restoring and restarting life, government and economic processes after emergency. We have to plan for recovery before the incident really occurs. We have to really start that process. We have things in place. We have plans in place. We have contracts in place. But we don't implement them, we don't activate them until we actually need them. You know, we have to think, Harvey, like I said, I keep referring to Harvey, but Harvey was a big life lesson learned for this city because we did a lot of new things that we've never done before, like a recovery resource center. You know, where residents could go, they could get information that they needed. They could find out different things. We put out information as far as what to do with debris, the flooded items, and all that. You know, early on it might have been a short-term recovery, but I think overall, I think Harvey is still a long-term recovery because there's still homes that haven't completely been recovered from Harvey or completely been repaired. Because I want to say the debris was, 3 weeks, I think, before it truly was cleared out from the city, and the contractors came in. I think it was in 2 waves to clear the debris up, but if you remember Southdale, it was a pain in the
Yes.
Oh my God.
It was a pain, but that area got hit the hardest. Some elements, obviously, mass care, feeding, and sheltering of victims. It's not something we do around here. We don't necessarily do a mass care. We don't necessarily do feeding or sheltering of victims because we're not a shelter site. But you know what? It could be a situation where we might need it. We might have a tornado come through, and you know what? Everybody else is hurting like we are, and we may not have an option but to set something like that up to take care of our own residents. We have to work with community development to try to set up temporary housing for those individuals. And I think I think Houston did it during Harvey. They were able to figure out some vouchers and things of that nature, but I don't think we ever did. Return basic community service. You know, obviously we want to make sure that the city can reopen and get going again just as soon as we possibly can. You know, the best of our ability, rebuild our economic and social infrastructure. Got to get things back to operational. Like this whole pandemic's a prime example. When things shut down, and it really hurts the economy. It really hurts the city as a whole. You know, we don't. Not only us do we take a hit as far as revenue, but the state did it as well. And you know, the governor's trying to open things up slowly to try to help rebuild that economy. Whether he's on the right path or the wrong path, you know, he's looking at everything and taking the advice from others. But you've got to find a way to rebuild, you know, especially after Harvey. You've got to find that way to get that information out, get the grants. Like, we're doing a grant for the business district from the pandemic. So these businesses that are hurting, they can apply for a grant through us, and we can give them maybe $20,000, $30,000. Every little bit will help. Your continuity of government and operations, you know, these are different plans. Your relationships, your networking, to help keep the process moving forward. Unemployment assistance. I mean, we don't, you know, I don't know how much we play a role as far as in our city being so small around unemployment, but there could be an opportunity for us to. Again, crisis counseling, not just for the responders, but we can open up counseling for citizens as well that may need it. You know, partner up with churches, partner up with different agencies to come in and provide that level of service. Public assistance for streets, highways, sidewalks, and public buildings, you know, through grants. Our community development does that right now. They're offering grants to help homes, you know, from Harvard to be able to raise them up. Obviously, streets and sidewalks, y'all know, is a big topic right now. in the city, and next week will be an interesting week. So, and the donations management. Y'all know how donations are. Y'all, if y'all remember Harvey, how much donations we got. You know, people come up and said, "What do y'all need? What do y'all want?" You know, and in our mind right away we start thinking about fruit, cookies, cake, you know, food or whatever. But it even went to a point where people were donating socks, they were donating underwear, they were donating towels, those type of necessities that we typically don't think about on donations, but are vital and really help us out. But we've set up since Harvey, we have set up a donations management type plan. So we're ready for the next one. We've got outside citizens, or we got citizens that after they're safe and their residence is good to go, can come up here to the city and they can run our donation center for us. And it won't be here at the fire station, it'll be over at City Hall. The nice thing is since Harvey since the City Hall, new PD, Parks and Rec, we're able to take a lot of the activities away from our building and spread them out throughout our little campus right here. Obviously, when it comes to recovery, long-term incident deployment, it's difficult for responders and their families. You know, that's the downside. Yeah, it's difficult for us because we're away from our families a lot longer than what we potentially anticipate. When we get deployed, we hope that we're only here for a day or two, but we don't know. Until it's all said and done, we really don't know what the deployment levels are. I think with Harvey was 8 days, and then I know it was 10 days for a lot of us. But depends upon your role, where you're at, depends on how long you're going to be here. Because the downside is here you are doing your job here in the city, and you can be having effects or something going on at your house, and you're not able to support your family there, help them, and do what's needed. Now, granted, if we run into a situation where you need to go home, then all you got to do is come talk to us, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. It's not like it's jail where you can't get out and go take care of your own, but we'll try to do what we can to help support and get you the resources you need for your family as well. Organizations should work to ensure that families are prepared and there's support in place. You know, FEMA has documents and resources that can assist in family readiness too. So these are long-term incident deployments. I know firefighters from Texas went to California to go help fight wildland, and I think their deployment lasted like a week. I think they were gone for a week and then they were back. But you know, you could get deployed. You could sign up for these different teams and be gone for an extended period of time. So just be ready before you commit to something like that, hey, this may not be a 1 or 2 day type deal. It could be a very long-term type situation. Businesses affected by the disaster, obviously recovery is the key to return to normalcy. Nearly half of small businesses affected by disasters never reopen. And I think we're seeing that right now with the whole entire pandemic. You see a lot of businesses that were closed, that were shut down, that maybe could potentially reopen, but they're not. You know, there's a lot of downside to the pandemic, and then I see a lot of positives to the pandemic on the business side, because now certain areas of like different fast food chains are expanding their level of service and things like that. And once they're able to open back up as far as dine-in, which a lot of them can now, and things are back to a new normal, whatever you want to call it, they're going to be able to provide a different level of service than what they were before, and they should be able to hire more people. I mean, curbside, how many curbside did you ever see at the fast food joints prior to the pandemic? Very little. Delivery services was what, Grubhub, you know, a few of them, and now it's all over the place. You know, so you got dine-in, you got drive-through. Well, now a fast food joint that only had drive-through and dine-in now just expanded 2 more service levels, and now when this is all said and done and fully functional, now they've just expanded their level of service. All the apps, I mean, are just blowing up, order stuff ahead of time and get there. It's just great in some aspects. At least our generation thinks it's great. The older generation may not think it's so much, but there are a lot of businesses that are affected. I mean, one restaurant that comes to mind is like Golden Corral with the pandemic. There's a lot of them that are shut down that probably will never reopen again. There's a lot that have restructured, and it's no longer you go serve yourself, they have to serve you. You know, so you really got to think about your business plan and your business operation. I always bring up Golden Corral because I saw the one local that had been open since April. So I don't even know how, you know, some of them are surviving. Post-disaster reconstruction, in the past, it was focused on rebuilding physical infrastructure, local livelihoods, economies, and institutions. Have to be strengthened and rebuilt, and investment in social capital is essential as well. So, you know, you come up with a plan, you come up with a way to help these businesses rebuild. You know, not just their infrastructure, but their business as a whole. You know, because a lot of them, when they rebuild it, if it's completely destroyed, they're going to build to the new current codes, which in result could cost them more money, because where they didn't need sprinklers, now they need sprinklers, per se. But you've got to really think about it. And I know during, like from Harvey, our city they put some leniency on some of the codes. They eliminated some codes just to help businesses to get going again, because the business district is vital, not just to us, but other communities as well. So we want to get it back up and running. We want to get it going. All right, so how do you educate engineering and enforcement promote mitigation efforts?
It's kind of like your inspections and your pre-planning stuff.
Yeah.
Large scale.
Inspection, pre-planning, getting out there, pointing things out, educating them, helping them out throughout their planning process, and then enforcing as you're going through. All right, let's take a break.
30 minutes?
I don't know if Moses is here yet, so let me see.
So
I know one thing, don't drink coffee and try to tease it. That sucks. Thinking it's good in the shirt's
Good thing you have another shirt.
You have a tight pen?
Do what?
Tight pen? Tight.
Oh, I got one on my desk too. I don't know. We'll see how well it works.
What a problem solver.
If you didn't come prepared with that shirt, you don't have to need one.
Let's take 10. He's not
10
here
minutes
yet.
break?
Yeah, about 10 minute break. With 3 follow.
Got another idea for us, but I gotta get it approved through chief, see if he wants to do it.
If he wants to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably gonna take financing for another budget year. But, reading through this, seeing if a local church, maybe one of their pastors or maybe one of their, ordained ministers or whatever they call them. Yeah, it all depends on the church again. Would wanna fill this role of a chaplain for the department. Instead of relying on HMD to hold them out. Maybe they can be a little more involved with us, cause we don't have one right now, we'd have to call HMD.
I asked Deacon about that. He said, I don't think he said HFB, but he
County.
said there's like some chaplaincy group that he calls. Cause I asked him, I was like, would like someone going to school for a chaplaincy program be covered as like a job related degree program?
Yeah.
If that person's willing to be a chaplain for the city, and Deacon was like, no, because we have a service. Or
They
like
pay
a
for
group.
them? Or it's
They must
voluntary?
have like some chaplaincy group that he calls out to whenever we have.
Going through.
Well, so I do it on myself. I'm like, you know what? Just take it out so I lay it on my desk and let it dry.
Hey, we were just talking about, something that Carl brought up a while back. Do you pay for chaplains to come here, or is it part of the county, or is it part of, how does that work here? You said you have a group that comes in whenever you need them.
I mean, there's a networking. I mean, I don't know if there's ever a cost. I mean, we would cover that obviously if we needed to, but I mean, there's a group of chaplains we can just reach out to if we ever need them to come in.
Is it part of the county? Is it?
I don't know if it's part of the county or if it's just a group that interacts a lot with the county. Yeah. I mean,
We'll have to call them and find out first.
yeah, I mean, we would definitely inquire. I mean, like a critical incident stress debrief and things like that too. I mean, we've got, verbal agreements with the city of Houston. We can call them anytime and have
Right,
their team come in.
That's what I was saying. We normally use.
But I mean, like, depends upon, the situation, the chaplains, we can always reach out to them and whatever we need.
What I was wondering is, I was telling him, if we can use one of those avenues because they have to network.
Oh, yeah.
They have to know somebody who knows somebody, and it'd be nice to have something local here where, hey, do you guys know anybody in the city of Bel Air with the 7 churches that we have that's affiliated with you guys and would be easier to reach out to? I mean, I don't know. I have no idea.
And I mean, we could probably reach out to all the pastors here in Bel Air and build that little internal group.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what we got with, I don't know if we could be able to cover all the denominations, but I mean,
yeah. I think if we had a Christian and a Catholic, one of each.
Definitely not all of them.
right, I mean, we would, because I know we used to have, I don't remember who our last department chaplain was.
The last guy we ever dealt with was the guy from Houston, old guy.
So,
What's his name? He's not. I think he retired already.
uh,
He's an older gentleman that leads that. He's
Jay?
from Houston. He's like
Yeah.
a deputy chief or something.
Yeah, Jay, God, I can't remember what his name. I know you're talking about though, yeah. But we had a local pastor. I thought it was from right up here because I thought it was a female.
Yeah, we don't need 7
No, we just
Lutheran, Baptist. We don't. We just 2.
just need a couple. I mean, and it'd be nice if, to have one and say, to build, a little bit of a network with them.
Yeah.
If somebody gets sick or whatever, it'd be nice to have
The difference
somebody to
between
go.
a pastor and a chaplain is educated to deal with all denominations. They're not supposed to be affiliated
Feel it with a certain.
with a certain one because they should be able to go to someone who doesn't believe in God and still comfort them, to someone who's Muslim or Jewish or Catholic or Christian. Like, it doesn't matter like what their denomination is. They're trained to provide chaplaincy care to anybody, whereas a pastor wouldn't be.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the name of that group is.
Forward me that information.
I will.
Okay. But that goes back to
Make
these
it-
guys have to network, part of that group, and they have to know if this area has one or doesn't have one.
Right.
Is there a chaplain part of any of these people here?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'll reach out and see.
I'd like to have that contact just to.
Yeah, it would be good to have for sure.
And I know we have the resources because, like, if we needed one today, each HFD can, or we can. Harris County has a chaplain on
Yeah,
call.
yeah, that's
they
what
have
I'm saying.
multiple
We make
chaplains
some
on
phone
call.
calls. We can get some chaplains for sure.
And that's free of charge. That's not
Part of our agreement that we have with them.
exactly.
Because they're getting paid by their respective
That's
organizations.
sure, and we're part of Harris County, so maybe we need to just develop a relationship with those individuals.
Yeah.
And I know they have their response can be anywhere from 30 minutes to like an hour and change, but
Yeah, but if you know,
but
you
they're
know,
on
ahead of time.
but they're
call.
on duty. They're on duty.
Yeah,
they're
they're
on
on
call
duty.
every day. So maybe we just need to reach out to Harris County and be like, hey, we'd like to get to know y'all. Come in and just put a face on one of them or whatever.
Yeah, let me do some.
If it was like an active shooter, yeah, they could come because that's like a one-thing incident. But if it's a citywide or if it's an incident that affects like the whole county, then we're probably not gonna get someone
for sure. But I mean,
right away.
they have resources too. I mean, they have connections.
Bring people in from Atlanta.
Did you find the video on the turkey stuff?
Oh. No, because what video did I look for the other day? did look, maybe I looked for that one the other day, I couldn't find it. But no, where did I have it?
I thought we talked to Chief Moses and he gave us the green light to do some role play and acting and make it funny and whatnot. So
That'd be cool.
we want to
Not like clown funny, but just
Oh.
like witty,
humorous,
humorous. Funny.
engage the audience. You know.
Remember when that was?
Are you still recording?
Yep.
Yeah.
I just know